So what is ADHD, and is it inevitable? I'm going to be perhaps a bit provocative and controversial here, because the common narrative is that this is something which is unavoidable. I'm not just saying this about ADHD. I believe this through my experience as a clinician of over 30 years and my own personal journey, that nearly all labels can be helpful but also very damaging, because they can create this sense that the condition is something which is bestowed upon us, yeah, and that we're helpless about it. But what I really want to create is a sense of power and agency for people to create change, simultaneously saying we can absolutely accept the challenges for whatever it is that bestows you. For me, a chronic autoimmune problem. Now, I either just say, this is just me and I'm powerless to do anything, but that's a very frustrating place. And I chose to say, what if I can do something differently about this and understand what is going on in my body? Why? And what if I can reverse that change? And I have reversed an autoimmune problem that for many is a lifelong challenge. I've also got the experience that I've been able to reverse the symptoms that we would package up in the label of ADHD for several patients in my practice. So it is not an inevitability, and I want that to bring hope for people. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Some people get very upset about calling it a disorder, so I apologize if that upsets you. ADD. There is no genetic coding that we have found yet for ADHD. Neither is there, in fact, for any spectrum disorder, autistic spectrum disorder. Is it an inevitability? And this is not dwarfism, this is not an inevitable DNA coding that will express itself whatever. Yeah. We are born with a series of potentialities. We tended to think, and we're slowly coming out of the old thinking and the old paradigm of genetics was an inevitability. I have blue eyes, I have brown hair, or once upon a time I did. And that's not going to change. Those things are inevitable DNA codings. The rest is a series of potentialities. Let's view it like that. And potentiality plus environment in the world of epigenetics is what leads to genetic expression. So, if you have this, but the environment is like this, this will be different. Yeah? So, if the potential is there, and there are some codings on the DNA helix which have been isolated in the studies to mean there is a sensitivity. Let's put it like that. There is a sensitivity, a propensity that given a set of circumstances, this is more likely than if that DNA coding is not there. That's about as much as we have right now about the genetic inevitability for ADHD. So, we can't change this, but what if we can change this? Now, what is this? Well, I believe stress, and stress in the nervous system is the major cause, and that often, in terms of childhood, is the most likely place. Why? Because that's where we're developing so much of our nervous system growth anyway. So, attention deficit. Well, what would happen if I was to stress you? Well, you're going to have a sympathetic or a parasympathetic response to that. Yeah? If you are put into a very stressful situation, you would want to probably fight your way out of it, or you would want to run away. If that wasn't available to you, then you would go into a freeze response, you would go into a parasympathetic state, the dorsal vagal would potentially take over, and we would shut down in some way. We would zone out. Yeah, we would potentially even completely shut down and collapse. So those are extreme responses of the nervous system to traumatic events and stress. So zoning out is a major part of the clinical symptomology that is used in the diagnosis of ADD is the zoning out. And I believe that the zoning out is usually a sign that if you've got a nervous system that is not regulated, well, if you don't feel safe, you're going to want to either be fidgety, hyperactivity, your sympathetic nervous system is going to make your nervous system more jumpy, more reactive, less likely to be concentrating on perhaps a boring subject that's being taught that you're not interested in. You're less likely, and so you're going to be very hyperactive. And in fact, that tends to be more of a presentation for the boys than it is for the girls, and hence more observable. And potentially why often more boys are diagnosed with ADD in their school years, possibly because the teacher sees them as being disruptive, but the quiet girl zoning out in a dreamy world of her own may not be detected. But zoning out, fundamentally, I believe to be a parasympathetic overload to a stress response. Now, where do we get this? Well, we learn this in our earlier years. This is the pathway in the neuroplasticity that we have learned based on our environment. I appreciate this is a very controversial viewpoint. It's a very sensitive subject with parents because they will very often feel responsible. Now, I don't mean to beat parents up, but because I'm a parent and we're all doing our best and we're all the product of our own childhood. You know, I've done a lot of work based on my own experiences and my own childhood and how that plays out in my adulthood, in my relationships, in my work and with my own children. And so if we take a really compassionate view to any parent of an ADD individual, I'm not beating anybody up, put myself in the same camp. But what if we can get past the defense that's like, no, how dare you, this is an inevitability of my child and the world must just adapt around that. Well, you can do that if you want. But just rather like my autoimmune, what if you say, look, I would really love to be able to be different and to not be plagued by these challenges and to be able to live my life in a different way. I'm not saying you have to, but if you wish to, I'm telling you that there is a potential to be able to do that by using the understanding of neuroplasticity. And if you haven't seen that video, please take a look at the neuroplasticity video to show how the nervous system can be changed. And even if we look at how changing the internal environment of the body will shape the expression of the DNA as the new cells create, we have the potential to create genetic plasticity and a different presentation in our body. The pandemic has unquestionably changed the presentation of stress, illness, and in my practice. And so we can't, that happened. But the question is, what do we do about it? I see this as a really positive and exciting thing to consider. Hi, I'm Roger. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons.